get started, Ashton, thank you for being with us today on the Scrunch Influencer Marketing Show. We have known each other for years now across different brands and companies. So I'm super excited to have you on the show to chat about your influencer marketing experience. Yeah, of course. So to get everyone started, do you want to maybe give a bit of a quick career journey as to your experience with influencer marketing and how you've kind of gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, casting my mind back, so we really have known each other for a long time since, you know, the good old Brisbane Threads days. That's pulling out a thread.
I can't believe it was all the way long ago.
Wild, absolutely crazy. Yeah, so my career journey and the relationship with influencer marketing have always sort of gone hand in hand. So I'd say the first foray into that would have been when I was at Flight Centre. So I was at Flight Centre for about five years or so. I worked in the marketing team, and at the time, influencer marketing was really just kicking off. It was quite a new thing. Instagram had only sort of been around for, you know, in a meaningful way for a couple of years. So, you know, it was travel marketing, and it was, yeah, we had these amazing influencers. I sort of think back, and we worked with, you know, Gypsy Lust and Elsa's Wholesome Life and Hello Emily, and you know, just I still sort of think about them.
Heyday of influencer marketing. Wow,
absolutely. It was back in the day, and those guys were big then, but it was still really new, but working with all these amazing travel photographers and travel bloggers. And so that was a really huge part of what we were doing to create content. And the content was to fill sort of our socials and to create blogs off, and to go into our print magazines as well. So it was a really quite holistic approach at the time, which was really cool. And then I moved on to YouFoods, which was, you know, a real highlight of my career. That was my first taste of food tech startup, and I'm back there again in the food tech startup world. So we can, you know, talk about that full circle. But YouFoods had a lot of early success with influencer marketing, a lot of sort of health, wellness, fitness, you know, mums, busy mums. There was just so many different sort of customer personas that we could sort of connect with through YouFoods. And we did it very early on as a brand in sort of the first couple of years of the journey, and it was a really big part of our strategy sort of ongoing. It was definitely an always on approach for us there, just, you know, constantly activating the brand on social and getting that network effect going. And then I moved into agency land for a couple of years. So still got to do some influencer marketing through that as well. It sort of, you know, follows me wherever I go.
Yeah,
I'm
get
definitely
all sides of it. Yeah,
that's it. And I'm definitely a holistic marketer. So, you know, an integrated approach is always my game. But even in agency, we did PR and social sort of combined. So even though we were quite niche, we still did have that influencer marketing kind of approach to it. Got to do a really interesting campaign there as well, to create a new wine trail through Queensland wine country, and really sort of was off the back of a government grant, and really sort of help them, you know, shine the spotlight on Queensland wine, which is you know, a very lesser known wine region as far as Australian wine growing goes. That was a really interesting campaign, and quite a large one, and ended up getting nominated for a Golden Target Award, which was one of the PR industry's prestigious awards, which is very cool. And now here I am at Gathar. So Gathar is, I've been here for just over a year. In startup terms, that's probably 3 years. It feels like three lifetimes, basically. But the easiest way to describe what we do is we're sort of the Airbnb of dinner parties. So you want to have a get together, you just tell us where, when, what kind of menu you want, and we pick you the perfect chef and take care of everything start to finish to have an amazing dining experience wherever you are. So that's obviously a very shareable, very experiential product, and lends itself really nicely to working with ambassadors and influencers. We did a little bit of it last year. You know, working with those startup budgets is always fun, and trying to really squeeze them during COVID, which was a tough time for us as well. That has sort of meant that we probably haven't played in the space as much as we'd like. But the exciting news is that we're launching in the US in just a few short months. So it's just around the corner. And again, yeah, the influencer and ambassador kind of aspect of our marketing strategy is definitely in the forefront for us in LA in particular, because we really want to tap into those networks.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, just sort of thinking about that, because I've seen the news coverage about the US launch. So you've even partnered, it's Curtis Stone, isn't it?
It is,
And I think that's interesting too, because I guess he's an influencer when you think about it, just a chef, and he's sort of an expert rather than your traditional influencer, but certainly has quite a large social following, quite a large presence. So actually partnering with someone like that for the launch is an interesting approach and almost influencer marketing in itself.
Yeah, you're so right. And that's a big reason why we're sort of partnering with Curtis. Super excited that he's come on board as our US co-founder. So, it's through the support of him and through that partnership that we're actually able to bring Gathar to the States. So that's super exciting. But that's been a relationship that's been many, many, many months in the making. And the big thing for us was we always wanted to partner with somebody like Curtis who has that network effect. Not only is he surrounded by a team of industry experts who can sort of help us with our go-to-market strategy, bring chefs on board for us, help us develop our menus for the US market and LA specific market. But yeah, obviously he's got a huge social following. He's well loved and well respected in Australia and in the US as well. He's got his restaurants, he's got his cookware line, he's on the Coles ads, he's on MasterChef, he's doing all, he's one, he's an influencer. I'm easily influenced by him, I know that.
Me too, yes.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and I find it interesting too, as you kind of took us through your journey and in the different brands and agency world, you always talked about it being integrated. And I love that because, we're talking all the way back in the Flight Centre days when influencer marketing was kind of quite new. You were already thinking about it that way. You're already thinking about what channels it was going into, and how to integrate influencer marketing into a holistic marketing strategy. And I think that even today, some people haven't quite got there yet. Some people still put influencers in one bucket and they don't think about how it's going to kind of be in their marketing ecosystem. Can you talk to why you take that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's for me, everything has to connect into everything else. And my short time in agency really made me realize that I love being in-house. I love seeing the whole picture. I need to see all of it and how it connects, because a customer journey is about all of those touch points. So I feel like sometimes when you're only looking at one channel or one campaign or one thing in isolation, you're not really, that's not a true reflection of what your customer is seeing and the journey that they're going on. So for me, you have to see all of it, and you have to understand how it connects to each other. And if I'm the customer, what am I seeing over here on social? And then what am I seeing on, TV or in emails or in store or on packaging? It's the whole thing. So as far as, why that was always a big consideration for me personally, content production is probably the biggest one. I've always believed that it's probably twofold, to be honest, but content production is a really big one. When you have something like travel and you sort of rely on maybe stock images or, customer holiday photos. And even for us now with Gathar, it's really difficult for us to say, oh, hey, can we send along a photographer to your, private dinner party or your wedding? It's like, it's not really a very natural thing for us to sort of insert our marketing selves into people's gatherings. So for me, it's about creating that content for us to leverage, then the content that sort of connects to that audience and kind of makes them take action. But when I say twofold, it's, it's the content production, but I've always believed that there's no greater marketing than word of mouth. And that trusted referral that's exactly what influencer marketing should be. And it's sort of been a bit co-opted, and it's, it's a bit broad, and people have done some crazy stuff sort of along the way. But when you sort of think back of, I always say ambassadors, like these are your brand ambassadors, and you should be working with them because you want them to sort of represent your brand. And that has been around as long as marketing has, having somebody saying like, oh yeah, I drink this, or I trust this, or I bought this car. That's exactly in essence what true influencer marketing should be about.
Yeah, and I actually love the word ambassador, and I find it really interesting at the moment. We're sort of moving away from the word influencer and towards creator. But I actually like ambassador as well, because I think that it helps people make the connection that it's not just a transaction. You do actually need to build relationships with influencers, creators, ambassadors, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Because if you think of them as an ambassador, you're more likely to invest in that relationship and help them and empower them and give them the tools so that they can go on to talk about your brand even after the sponsored post or the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And, I sort of look at it in terms of a gathering. And so if you are having, a beautiful dinner party with you and sort of, 8 of your closest friends, then you then are the influencer, because you've invited them in and you've said, hey, I've used Gather and I've booked this amazing chef and, we're all going to share this experience together. You suddenly have become the brand ambassador. You're representing us, and that's a very organic way of doing it. But we have found the best bookings come from other guests at gatherings, or people who recommended it to their friends or their colleagues, or what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I had this amazing private chef like come and do an intimate dining experience at my own house or at my Airbnb. So I think that that's kind of the feeling that we want to replicate when we do work with those creators. We want the content, we want the creator, kind of aspect to it. But we, like you said, we really want someone who, after the campaign is, kind of all the deliverables are met and the agreements, done and dusted, it's like we want them to come back to us and maybe even book another one or tell their friends about us. We want that relationship to kind of go much further than just what's in the contract.
Yeah, and I love that idea as well, that the word of mouth advertising aspect to it, where it's like, we talk about influencers and it's like, well, an influencer doesn't have to be a social media influencer. Your customers are your influencers if you treat them right. But I love that idea of so word of mouth is, yes, essentially the customer tells their friend. That's kind of a one-to-one. The influencer, it should be the exact same idea. It's just that it's 1 to 10,000 or 100,000, depending on how many followers that they actually have. So obviously you've done a whole raft of things. You've done travel, you've done food, you've done agency life. What's been your, your most favorite campaign to work on? Like, if you work on something that's kind of super interesting, or it performed really well, or you just had an amazing experience with a creative, anything spring to mind?
I mean, we did so many amazing campaigns at YouFoods. When we were doing certain menu launches, we'd really go all out for our winter menu launch, because that was kind of big season for us. And there was probably the first winter that I was there, we did this, we had this huge TV ad, and it was this kind of Willy Wonka theme, and it was so experiential. And I always loved that we had, the product was, ready-made meals, and the meals are good. I still get the meals, it's like, that's, I'm still an ambassador for the brand. Yeah, exactly. Years after I've left. But, to kind of reflect that epic TV Willy Wonka golden ticket sort of moment, we actually worked with a good handful of influencers. I can't even remember how many there were. Let's say there were like between 20 and 30. And we went, and for their orders, we put this special gold wrap around the box, and we really made it so that the unboxing was, it was really reflective of that campaign, and this kind of like taking your taste buds into this kind of world of imagination. And it was just really cool. And it was kind of like, here's a pretty simple product. Yep, ready-made meals in a food in a container, awesome. But we've just leveled it up so much. Like it was really cool. And I remember at the time, our social feed and all of our tagged photos just being flooded with this gold. It was so gold, and it was right in your face. And as you sort of went through, you could really see on our channels how every season visually shifted, and it was reflected from what we did internally as a brand in all of our campaigns, but that was reflected through all of our user-generated content from our customers and from our ambassadors and stuff as well. So that was super cool. But I do have another example actually from last year. So at Gather, we worked with Drew Davies. He is a principal agent at Place in Ascot, I'm pretty sure, in real estate. And we arranged for him to have a lovely gathering, and we sent Chef Ellie along, who's a MasterChef alumni. So really kind of,
Oh, cool.
beautiful kind of synergy there. And, Drew had a great time and he created some beautiful content for us. He did, a reel that just kind of went really well. And we actually got bookings off the back of it. And to be able to sort of, get ROI down to that kind of level, not just how much, the traffic that visited, that's great, the click through, the engagement, maybe even the lead generation, that's great, but we were actually able to measure paid bookings, so dollars back into the business based on that campaign with Drew. And I just thought that was super cool, and that sort of has also unlocked conversations for us to talk to Drew and talk to Place and other real estate agents about how Gathar can, come into their world as well and support them through open houses and, VIP showings and client dinners. And so those conversations are ongoing. But, to go back to what we were saying before, the relationship extends beyond the campaign. The campaign doesn't really have it doesn't really have a use by date. It's the start of a relationship. And I would, definitely happily work with Drew again and kind of, continue that relationship. So that's, for me, that's just a perfect example of how one campaign can have so much impact.
Yeah, and I love, so there's kind of two things you really hit on there. The first one is experience. So, making sure that when you send something to an influencer, so you gave the idea of, the example of integrating, so the TV ad with the gold wrap on the delivery boxes so that it was highly visual and they created a lot of content and it was really recognizable. That's something interesting that I find too, people sort of, sometimes they'll just send a product and not really give it much thought. Yeah. And I just go, oh my God, you're missing out on so many extra opportunities over and above that one post they're supposed to be delivering if you kind of surprise and delight them. Do you think that experience and going above and beyond is sort of critical when it comes to an influencer campaign?
Yeah, 100%. And it's, the word surprise and delight, that was actually a huge thing that we did at YouFoods. Even in our early days, early customers would know, it's much easier to do it on a smaller scale, but, you used to get little treats in your YouFoods boxes and there'd be, for Valentine's Day and little surprises. And they still do it. Some of the girls are, again, still ambassadoring, some of the girls in the office, I've got them to start ordering and they got little treats in their first order. So the surprise and delight aspect, always, people always remember you going above and beyond for them, even if the experience is only okay, even if it's just nice, if it's just food in a container or a chef coming and preparing a nice meal for you and you're like, yeah, that was nice, it was good, it was nice. But if you add that little extra element, or people feel like you've gone to the effort to go, oh wow, like I feel really special and really thought of and really taken care of, for me it's just the effort. That's all. It's all anybody really wants out of a transaction or a relationship, isn't it? It's like you just want to know that somebody is sort of reciprocating and putting in the effort on their end as well.
Yeah, and like, I guess this is kind of the common theme for the chat today, that building of a relationship. And it's kind of like, part of that is that going above and beyond. It's kind of going, yes, I know I'm paying you for XYZ, but we love what you do and we really want you to be a friend of the brand and we blah, 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 blah. So we've done this little thing extra for you. And I think you can call attention to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can. It's fine. It's like, you're not trying to hide it from anybody. It's like, yeah, hey, I hope you love it. It's like, if you are working for the brand and, you should be sort of excited and passionate about your brand, you want that to sort of come across to anybody else working for you as well. And so, at Gathar, one of our core values is 5-star experiences. Awesome. And that means everything from, the interactions that the team are having on the phone to, the kind of interactions on social, and obviously, on the day of the gathering, that experience with the chef and the cooking and the serving and the interaction with the chef and leaving the kitchen spotless. So from sort of inquiry through to repeat purchase, it's that 5-star experience. And that's what, that really underpins absolutely everything we do. And it's the same whether, we're working with an ambassador, a friend of the brand, or whether we're, creating your normal weekday beautiful gathering. It's like that 5-star experience needs to happen for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And in your second example, when you were talking about working with Drew at Place Estate Agents, you mentioned ROI, and that's a huge question that we get. But I know from, we've worked together around influencers for quite a while, and I know back at U Foods, you guys were so diligent about tracking and measuring and testing different types of influencers. And you've mentioned that again at Gathar. How important is that? I know like people have so many different strategies. Can you track it? Is ROI real in influencer marketing?
I mean, it really probably depends on your brand and your brand goals. I think sometimes about, someone like Nike, and it's like, are they really tracking like, every single person that they send a free pair of shoes to? It's like, look, probably not, because they're at the stage where their brand awareness, they can dedicate a certain percentage of the budget, and they're like, this is just brand awareness. We know that if we put a certain amount out there, it's going to come back to us. It's just important to remain top of mind and competitive. So, unless you're sort of the Nikes of the world, the Nikes of the Cokes, or the, Googles of the world, I think that you can really bring it down a level. And look, it's really challenging, I think, when you're a small business, when you're a marketing team of one, hello, that would be me, when you're working with startup budgets, these things kind of mean that every dollar you put in, you need to guarantee, that you're at least getting $1 or, $4 back. It has to sort of be there to be worth your while, because, you don't have sort of unlimited funds, and you don't have that freedom to test and learn. So I'd say at the very base level, the first thing is you need to set the goal. It's like, what is it? Do you just want to reach people that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach? Do you want those people to come to your website? Do you want those people to sign up and give you their details for an email newsletter or for some kind of lead generation? Or do you actually want them to make a purchase and you want to see that transaction at the end? And there's so many tools that make it so easy to track things these days. Linktree, if you don't use the free version, you spend $20 a month or whatever it is, like Linktree has analytics and stuff built right into it, so you can track your links. And I think that's it. Just get really friendly and familiar with how you track those goals. And it has to mean something, because for me, and I sort of harp on about this all the time, but how do you know if you have achieved success if you never knew what success looked like, if you didn't define that in the first place?
And I think that's just a great point about marketing strategies in general, right? People sort of say, influencers, where do I start? Do I just find the Kim Kardashian of the world, or do I just find a whole bunch of small people? And it's like, well, you kind of have to think about what you want to achieve first.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we did a couple of different ones last year as well. And, we did a big macro influencer, and we did, we've done, some smaller scale ones as well. And they both have different results. For us, the big macro influencer definitely helped us grow the community. That was great. But the smaller, more sort of not even micro influencer, they're kind of somewhere in the middle, that actually sort of resulted in website traffic. So I think when you think about the people that you sort of follow, and, if you're seeing Kim Kardashian promoting a product, that's not Skims, are you really going to click on it, or are you just going to think, oh, Kim Kardashian is sponsoring this product? Whereas if you see somebody local to you, somebody in Brisbane, or, in Perth or Sydney, and somebody that you follow, that they go to the same cafes as you, that they like yoga like you, and you see them kind of share something, your action's going to be really different. So the trust level and the referral, the sort of action that you take based on that individual person is really going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So my last one for you before we wrap, having been around, startup brands and, all layers of influencer marketing and different budget levels, so a lot of people dialing in to the influencer marketing show are just kind of starting out on their influencer journey. Would you have any tips for a small business or a small brand who's literally just starting to dip their toe in the water with influencers, and any advice you could give them to kind of get started?
Yeah, it's super hard, and you just like, how do you know what works if you don't know what works? That's a really big thing. So
Yeah.
I think, again, sort of getting familiar with your data, just use Google Analytics, see where your traffic's coming from. If you have a bunch of people coming from email is obviously a great thing for you. And if you would like to, do some influencer marketing, maybe you can sort of work in that email aspect. Maybe you want more people to sign up to your newsletter because you know that email is a really great channel for you. But in terms of, where do I start? How much money should I spend? This is literally just what I kind of go in and approach things as. And because, how long is a piece of string? Literally, where do you start when you've got 100 different things you could possibly do? Use the old 80-20 rule. So 80% of your budget dedicated to the activities and the tactics that you know are going to give you some good ROI. It's like, I know email is really good. I know paid search is really good. So yep, 80% of the budget, the majority is kind of guaranteed, that's going to work for me. That 20%, at least use that to try. That's your test and learn budget. It might be, one quarter, you might say, all right, my little 20% of my testing budget this month, I'm going to do an influencer campaign. I'm going to use Scrunch, and I'm going to find the right people that actually really kind of align with my brand, and I'm going to give it a go. Maybe next quarter you don't do that. Maybe that 20% goes towards testing something else like Pinterest, or something completely different. And then maybe the next quarter you go back to influencer marketing and you say, okay, those people that I worked with, the person in this vertical, the person in the beauty space, that really seemed to connect with their audience, but this kind of, the health and fitness wellness kind of warrior, that didn't really have the same results. So maybe I'll, work with more people in the beauty vertical. So I think the old 80-20, just start with 20% of your budget and just give it a go. And you can't rule it out because you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and at least give things more than one try. So, give it a try. If you feel like it's fallen a bit flat, just take the learnings and give it a little bit of space and try again, because consumer habits change, the landscape changes, social's changing every day. It's like, just because something didn't work once, it could be something in the market, it's COVID has turned consumer habits like topsy-turvy. So don't rule it out just because it didn't work once. At least you just need to dedicate a little bit of resource and a little bit of time and space to being really sure about what works for your brand.
Yeah, and I love that. I love the idea of testing different influencers inside that testing budget as well. So, you kind of said, take a step back and look at, okay, we tried these types of influencers, which ones went well, which ones didn't go well, and what was it about them? Was it they were in a different vertical, or did they do a different type of post or a different call to action? I think getting down to that level of detail really helps you nail which influencers work for you and which don't, or if even influencer marketing works for you at all.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the heart of good marketing is just being curious. It's like, why, if something fails spectacularly, why didn't that work? It's like, what was it? Why didn't it work? So being curious and interrogating things, and not just saying, oh, well, that didn't work, we're not going to try that again. Actually kind of stepping back and just having that curious mindset to kind of dig into things and want to know why something worked or why something didn't work. I think that's how you unlock the thing that does work. And once you go on that journey and fail, succeed, once you unlock that, then it's just the sky's the limit from there. But you obviously need to give it a go, and you need to find those great unlockers first. You can't know if you don't go.
I love that. Well, on that note, thank you so much for spending your time with the Scrunch community. I know that anyone listening in will have gotten some kind of nugget of wisdom, so I really appreciate your time and experience.
Anytime. Always a friend of Scrunch.